What's up? This is BoxingWave. Now, I'm going to speak on this whole Canelo and him ducking Erislandy Lara thing, alright? I mentioned it real quick when I spoke and broke down the fight between him and Angulo, alright? But I spoke on it real brief, like I didn't want to really get into it. But I was watching Dante's boxing video. Shout out to Dante. I subscribed to the channel, love the videos, but I had to disagree with you here. And this is not even a direct response to him. This is just like an overall, because everyone is saying it. You know, everyone wanted him to fight Lara. Everybody thought Canelo was gonna pick Lara, and I don't know why people would think that. You know, I don't think the fight makes sense right now. I've been wanting to see the fight for like at least 2 years now. But right now, the fight just doesn't make sense to me. You know, he's coming off of a loss. Erislandy Lara is the #1 guy at 154. And from a business standpoint, not only from a business standpoint, but the fact that he is coming off of a loss, I don't think he deserves to fight Erislandy Lara right now. He lost. Let's see him fight someone not easy, all right? But let's see him beat someone that's in the 154 division, not a smaller guy, convincingly, a guy that Lara just fought, and let's see how he looks in that fight. Now, some of the people maybe I'm gonna go through the whole division real quick, right? I'm gonna start with Miguel Cotto, right? Miguel Cotto, he wanted to fight with Miguel Cotto. Didn't happen because Miguel is trying to pursue a fight with Sergio Martinez, all right? So that fight is not happening. Another reason why it hasn't happened, all right? Even though Miguel, and I don't even think Miguel Cotto's a true 154 pounder. I think he was way better at 147. But he's been fighting at 154. He's been a champ at 154. And the reason why it didn't happen is because Cotto lost to Austin Trout, clearly. Cotto was supposed to fight before Mayweather, all right? It didn't happen because he lost to Trout, all right? Victor Ortiz, same thing. Victor Ortiz was supposed to fight. Victor Ortiz lost to Josecito Lopez. Canelo went on to fight Josecito Lopez, all right? The reason why they're not fighting now, well, we haven't seen Victor Ortiz fight in almost 2 years. Last time we saw him in the ring, his jaw was broken. And the last time we saw him before that, he got knocked out. And he's another guy from 147, all right? Or originally a 140, the 147 fighter, all right? So that's the reason why that fight isn't happening. It just doesn't make sense. Victor Ortiz is fighting Louis Collazo, all right, which is a good test for him. And those are the guys that he needs to fight to prove to people that he's still in there. He's still, you know, can fight. Now, who else do we have here? Carlos Molina. Carlos Molina does hold a belt, all right? He does hold a belt. Now, this fight's supposed to be pay-per-view. Who is going to buy a Canelo Alvarez versus Carlos Molina fight? All right? No one would have been happy if they heard that. They would have been even more upset if Canelo picked Molina over Angulo. Molina's a much easier fight. And when I say that, I don't mean that as Canelo would have beat him clearly, but Canelo would have never been hurt. All right? If Molina gave him any trouble, it was because Molina would have been outworking him. He doesn't hit hard. He likes to tangle up. He likes to punch off the clinch and rack up points. That's the way he fights. And as far as I'm concerned, him and E.J. Smith gave the most boring fight of 2014. The most boring fight I remember watching in 2013. All right? So that's the reason why that fight didn't happen, in my opinion. They're not going to pick Carlos Molina because they know this is a pay-per-view event. People are not going to pay for it. And not only that, the people that would pay for it are going to be unsatisfied with that fight, whoever wins. And maybe we know it is an easier fight than Angulo, because if it went to decision, there's no way they're giving Carlos Molina the win. All right? Carlos Molina is just not marketable. It wouldn't have been a good fight. I wouldn't see that fight. I wouldn't even want to see it for free, let alone paying for it. All right? Demetrius Andrade. Huge fan of Demetrius Andrade. All right? I think he is the second best at the division already. But I will admit, he has not fought anyone. Alright? The only person he has fought was Vanes Martirosyan. Alright? And Vanes Martirosyan hasn't fought anyone outside of Erislandy Lara. And that fight didn't even go to the end. And I think he was losing that fight. Alright? Demetrius Andrade looked a lot better than Martirosyan. He looked a lot better against Vanes than Erislandy Lara did. But at the same time, who has Vanes Martirosyan fought? Both of these guys, this was a step-up fight for the both of them. Alright? And Andrade looked impressive in that fight. Still think Andrade needs to fight someone else. Even though I think Andrade could beat Canelo Alvarez, I still think Andrade needs to fight someone else in the division with a name or, you know, a top guy at 154 before he gets Canelo. Just saying. I think Canelo, you know, we can question who he's fought or whatever all the way leading up to Floyd Mayweather. Alright, but since Austin Trout, he has fought Austin Trout, he has fought Floyd Mayweather, the guy, the best in this era or whatever. Alright, so now, real quick, I just want to remind you guys that I truly think Canelo Alvarez was protected. Golden Boy realized that he was marketable because of his looks, his personality, whatever, and he has skills. He's definitely marketable, and they protected him. They made him fight washed up guys at 154, Kermit Cintron, you know, and they made him fight guys that had to move up in weight, you know, Shane Mosley. There's a long list of all of them, whatever. He was protected. I can't stress that enough. I wanted him to fight so many guys that he could have fought before Floyd Mayweather. Yeah, he could have fought Angulo. He could have fought Kirkland. He could have fought Paul Williams. He could have fought Molina. Alright? He could have fought Erislandy Lara. These are guys that have been around for the last couple of years that he could have fought. But they obviously protected him. Made him fight smaller guys. You know, Alfonso Gomez. He fought Matthew Hatton. You know what I'm saying? Shane Mosley. These guys or whatever. So anyway, I do think he was protected. But I'm talking about right now. After fighting Floyd Mayweather, right now, he's fought Austin Trout and beat him. He's fought Floyd Mayweather. Lost that fight. Respectable loss. Alright? Are we going to make him fight the other top 154 pounder right after coming off of a loss? Or do we want to see if he can still compete at a high level in the division? Alright? Who else do we have? The Charlo twins. Think they're both good. Really good. I'm a big fan of both of them. Alright? But they haven't fought anyone yet. You know, Jamel is stepping up to fight Gabe Rosado. Gabe Rosado came back down to 154. These guys are fighting in a few weeks. Looking forward to that fight. But the twins haven't fought anyone yet. Even though as good as I think they both are, they haven't fought anyone yet. Alright? So, then you have everybody else. Alright, the only other person that I feel was James Kirkland. James Kirkland definitely was a worthy opponent for Canelo Alvarez. Whether it was him and Angulo, I totally think it was going to be one of those two guys. All right, I knew it wasn't going to be Molina because Molina is just not the pay-per-view draw. Cotto went to Sergio Martinez. I knew it wasn't going to be Erislandy Lara, and Erislandy Lara was not getting the fight because he is the top guy. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. As a boxing fan, I want to see the fight, but on a business standpoint, we got to remember, you know. This is why fans act like managers. Because it makes sense. We think like managers. It makes sense. Canelo, we knew he was protected. And he's still going to be protected. And he's not out here calling out fighters. He's not out here on like Keith Thurman calling out people by name in every interview. He's not doing that. So they're going to set him up with who they want him to fight. And if you're thinking from that standpoint, Angulo fight makes total sense. Him or James Kirkland. James Kirkland just looked coming off a win against Glenn Tapia, a lot of people saw that fight. A lot of people saw that fight. All right. So Erislandy Lara it just didn't make sense to me. You know, it didn't make sense to me, and I want to see the fight, but I want the build-up to be better for this fight. I want him to beat Angulo, which I think is a 50-50 fight. I want him to beat Angulo first. It's a tough fight for Canelo. He hasn't fought anyone at 154, a true 154 pounder besides Austin Trout, but one that has power and that's going to pressure you from the time the bell rings, you know. So I think the fight definitely makes sense. A fight with Lara right now does not make sense. His next fight, if he can beat Angulo gave Lara trouble. Angulo knocked Lara down twice. How can this be an easy fight when Lara was losing against Angulo? How can it be easy? How can you call this an easy fight? He wants to fight someone easy. How? Why? Because Angulo lost to Kirkland? So? A lot of people lost to James Kirkland. You know what I'm saying? You could say the same. If you're going to say this about Canelo, you could say the same about every other boxer that doesn't fight who you want them to fight. Everyone is saying the same about Floyd and Pacquiao. I agree on both ends. One half of me says, you know what, Floyd? Fight this guy. He is the top guy that everybody wants to see you fight. Why is it such a big deal? Just fight him, get it over with. But on Floyd's defense, I understand where he's coming from. You know, take the test. You just lost twice. You know, his excuses, I kind of understand. People are downplaying it in the fact that he wants the test to be, you know, he wanted the test to get taken. I'm not going to get into all that. But what I'm saying is, the point I'm trying to make is, I'm a fan of the sport. Alright, I'm a fan of boxers, but I'm a fan of the sport first. And I think fights being made, you gotta remember this is a business. Canelo Alvarez, if he can fight the bigger name guy, alright, and get the most money, he's taking money at the end. And it worked. This whole protecting Canelo worked. He got all the way up to Floyd Mayweather. He got his shot. Alright? Whether you think he deserved it or not, they made the most money. They convinced people that Canelo was going to win this fight, and it worked. People paid for it. All right, now that it's over, let's be real now. You got your L now. You have your loss on your record. The 0 is gone. Now it's time for you to fight, to prove to people that you are the best in this division. And Angulo is a great start for me because it's a 50-50 fight. He's fighting a guy we never seen him fight before. All right? He's not fighting a smaller guy. I think it makes sense, all right? So anyway, as far as anybody else, Ishe Smith, we haven't heard from him. Bundridge, you know, I was trying to think of all the 154 pounders in the division right now, and I think me personally, Angulo and Kirkland would have been the best 2 shots. I don't think Canelo is ducking anyone. I think the Canelo Lara fight is going to happen. I like the build up of the fight though. I like that people are starting to realize now who Lara really is. But still, outside of boxing, real true boxing fans, no one even knows who Erislandy Lara is still, which is amazing. But he's starting to get known a little bit now. So I think the build up of the fight, it possibly being a pay-per-view later this year, makes more sense if Canelo is coming off of a win against Angulo, a guy that almost beat Lara. All right. So anyway, just let me know what you think. Peace.